Thank you very much, Steffi. We've had some great talks, haven't we? Wonderful papers about the impacts, life cycle impacts of IT. We've seen some great talks about the enabling effects of IT, things like carpooling, the ways in which we can make the world better with IT. But we also need to talk about the damage that IT is supporting. And particularly after that last keynote, how do you feel? How do you feel about working in the tech-related area? So I'm very pleased to present this paper, co-written with my colleagues Minna and Aksel. Do stand up, let people see who you are so you can talk to us later. From KTH, so they're playing away for this game, they'll be playing at home next time. And if I can move on to the next one. Let's see.
Oh, just press here. Okay, we have issues.
Who would work with Apple products?
Yeah, no.
Like
These works. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So, yeah, we talk a lot about, we are ICT4S as a community, ICT for sustainability. If you look from a business perspective, they'll talk about this as being tech for good, and that's the framing, for sustainability, for good. But I think we really need to spend more time talking about tech for bad, the way in which tech enables damage to our society and damage to our environment. And with Minna and Aksel, we wanted to look at a case study, oil and gas. The oil and gas industry is at the heart of the damage being done in climate change. Now, if you don't know the oil and gas sector, this is the way they talk about themselves. Upstream is exploring for oil and gas and pumping it out. Midstream is transportation and storage, and downstream is refining and selling the fuel. It's not actually a particularly heavy carbon industry in that. The damage is done when we burn the product. So if you're more familiar with an LCA or Greenhouse Gas Protocol way of thinking, actually the real downstream is when we burn the product, scope 3 as far as the industry is concerned, and that's where the damage is done. But still, these companies are the ones that are ultimately responsible for making that product. Fossil fuels contribute about 86% of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, and they have to decline. This is an industry that has to end. Coal first, and we decided not to look at coal because there's fairly widespread agreement that coal has to be phased out. Oil and gas, perhaps less so. It still seems a very acceptable industry to many people, and I don't think this pace of change is accepted by many in the wider community. This is a report from the International Energy Agency, their net zero report, and you can see how rapid that decline is. Let's take a step back. Sustainability is a matter of values. Yes, there's science in things like climate science, but this is a lot a discipline about values. It's normative, and you probably ought to want to know who we are, who did this work. We come from a perspective that technology is not the primary solution. It really is about the need for change and transformation in society. You saw the three of us, we are Northern Europeans. We come from a privileged background of fossil fuel wealth. And two of us have worked for the oil and gas industry, or the fossil fuel sector. Minna worked with an energy company that burned coal. And in my management consultancy career, I helped implement SAP oil and gas systems that made Shell and BP more efficient. Feel free to boo and hiss now. And I deeply regret that. And I kind of wonder, why didn't I connect climate science with that work at the time I was doing it? There is a very particular culture within oil and gas. making the world better for people, giving people energy and warmth. And if you're in the industry, it's kind of hard to listen to the voices outside. We're also, all three of us, PhD students, so we are relative novices in this group of people here today. But some of us have a bit of experience in other places. These are the research questions we pursued. We wanted to understand a bit more about this oil and gas space and the role of systems. How does ICT enable the damage? How many people are working in this sector? Do you know? Do you have any feel for that? What examples are there of ICT professionals already pushing for change? And how might we conceive of the ways in which ICT professionals could think? Now, this is not a completed systematic literature review. We have just done a scoping review. So this is presenting more of an agenda for research, but giving the reasons why we should pursue this. And the answer to research question 1 is, well, there's very little in the academic literature, but there's plenty in the grey literature and commercial literature. Businesses like SAP have made a lot of money providing end-to-end systems for the oil and gas industry. But let's not just call out SAP. Let's also talk about Microsoft, who have industry architectures for upstream and downstream oil and gas, or AWS running these services. So this damage, this product that changes the climate, is supported by ICT people. And perhaps we ought to consider stopping that. In fact, there was an IEA report in 2017 that said if you applied more digitalization upstream, you could extract 5% more of the oil. Doesn't sound very big, but hey, congratulations. We as an IT industry can help to add 10 years worth of production. I don't think we should be doing that. How many people do you think work in this sector? Well, we didn't find much in the way of detail, certainly no academic papers, but we did find an interview with the BP CIO. 10,500 IT people working just for them on oil and gas systems in 2015. So add Shell, Exxon, Aramco. This is a lot of people we're talking about who are in a declining industry, whether they know it yet or not. What examples of action are there already? Well, there is organizing. People in Google and Microsoft and Amazon have organized, have written letters to management, have partaken in climate strikes, but it's not had a huge impact yet. Pretty much business as usual. There's an interesting little example. We had the open source colleague this morning. Well, there's an open source license called the Climate Strike License. License your software under that, and it forbids fossil fuel businesses from using your software. Yeah, okay, I know. Try to enforce it. That could be interesting. There are much better examples of action in other professions or other issues. And in our paper, we have a table telling you more about each of these. So law students and indeed barristers in the UK are getting quite organized at not doing work for oil and gas companies. Marketing creatives are beginning to organize themselves. Shell is looking for a new marketing agency. There's a real campaign to stop agencies pitching to them. Tech Won't Build It is perhaps the most successful example, which led to Google not renewing the Project Maven contract with the DoD. What examples are there of how might we conceptualize, rather, the ways in which IT workers in oil and gas might think about their roles and about their future exit? Well, we might take a pragmatic self-interest perspective. These jobs pay pretty well at the moment. I can understand. And having worked in the sector, I also understand that it is exciting. You're at the heart of geopolitics. But the industry is coming to an end. And if your job is in upstream exploration, perhaps the geophysical systems, that job's coming to an end pretty soon. And you really need a plan to get out of there. Plan your exit now. We want to make sure that Just Transition is there for oil and gas workers, not just for everyone else in society. We might also wonder whether there are ethical ways of thinking that ICT staff could use. So professional ethics, BCS, ACM, Karlskrona Manifesto, the SDGs offer one potential ethical form. Secular ethics, we must talk about utilitarian versus duty-based deontological. And there are 5.8 billion people affiliated to Christian, Muslim, Hindu, or Buddhist religions, and some of those work in oil and gas, so maybe there is a religious ethic to be used. These are questions we'd like to test out in the research, because this is really an agenda. Do you choose to not work in the oil and gas sector? If you're in it, do you choose to challenge it from inside? We would like to run a research program, to do a proper systematic literature review, to look at the value chain and say which parts of it are going to stop first. Workforce data can we find on LinkedIn? And indeed, learning from history. The slavery business went from acceptable to unacceptable over quite a long period of time. What's it going to take for oil and gas to go the same way? How can we learn from historians? Hey, probably not easy to get this one funded. If you've got any ideas as to who we should approach to fund it, please do talk to us later. If you know people in the sector, what are you talking to them about? And that's it. Thank you very much.